Hiya, this is Kitten Features, and you're listening to ShowX Live with Ken in the student accommodation all the way in Scotland. Wait, that was years ago. You're listening to ShowX Live with your favorite Scotsman Ken, currently residing in the US of A, and Wayne, mostly from Colorado.
Hey, wait a second. I'm on the show too, and I don't get any billing at all? Well, I know how to solve this. Soldater, Fremad, March! You're listening to Show X with our favorite Scotsman Ken, our child of the corn Wayne, currently living in Colorado, and Todd, who now has an army of angry Norwegians at his back. Enjoy the show!
For some reason, I gotta double check. My Stream Deck is not hitting the buttons like it's supposed to, so I'm having to do it all manual-like. What the heck?
Oh my!
It sounded all good to me. It sounded like all right.
Oh yeah, no, it did. I just as it was going, I was like, "Why isn't the transition happening?" Hit the button, get a weird exclamation point, like "Not happening." I see what you're doing there. You suck. Anyhow. Welcome, everybody, to the show. It's just after 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT on this 27th of December, 2020. This is the last show for Show X in this year of the 2020, which take it, leave it, whatever it may be for each of you out there. But with all hopes that we end things out here on the best note we can so that we can start things out in the new year even better. So welcome to the show, everybody, and how are you guys doing today?
Can we swear this show? Can we? It's the last show of the year. It's our holiday show. Can we swear? Let's be our swearing show.
I mean, my not swearing on the show is because the first time I had a mic shoved in my face, it was going out over the actual airwaves, and there was a rule when you couldn't, and I just sort of held on to it. You can fucking do whatever you want to.
And you're okay with it, Wade?
18 it up, everybody. It is called Show X and Chill.
I think it's generally a good thing for us to be professional and show that we have a wide vocabulary that does not need swear words. And that's the thing. Swear words are supposed to be for special occasions, I think. I think if you use it too often, they lose their perfunctoriness, They aren't quite as effective. In fact, studies show that if you swear when you're in pain, when you don't normally swear, it's more effective at pain relief. That you actually feel better if you swear when you're in pain than if you don't swear, than if you never swear at all, right? So I think the same must go for when we never swear on air and then we say, fuck 2020, man. Fuck you, 2020. I'm so glad you're over.
This is a great topic because this is one of those things that I don't understand.
Oh,
right?
Come on.
Yeah. Well, so it's been every year has been the worst year ever since 2016.
You're right. I've heard a lot of this. Yeah.
And so we're either in office space, which is fine, or, or people have just lost their thick skin, right?
I think the 2016 onward stuff is just that it was largely political based, right? It's Democrats are mad and saying this is ridiculous, worst year ever, and he's still in office, continues to be the worst year ever. I think that's kind of the reference, right? And that's fine. My message to those people is you're going to get a bunch of answers in your life that you don't like. And if every time you get an answer that you don't like, it's the worst year ever, you're going to have a lot, and I mean a lot, of worst years ever. Like I agree with you.
From an objective, or as objective as I can be, I guess, from an objective perspective, I don't know that 2020 cracks in the top 10. Yes, we have a plague. The plague didn't kill 25% of everybody in Europe.
Okay, you're thinking historically. I mean, historically, I agree with you. I mean,
What else
we are
does
in a
worst year ever
privileged
mean?
time.
No,
It means
I
in a
mean,
lifetime, and for me, my lifetime is rather short, right? I mean,
to
I'm
Todd's
1991
point-
onwards.
to Todd's point, from a historical perspective of the world, today is better for all of humanity than it has ever been in the history of ever. There are
Yeah.
less poor people objectively throughout the world than ever has been. There are less people in poverty that can't eat. There is better health care throughout the world than ever has been in the history of man. Beyond that,
You're
there
both
can
completely
be
correct, and I understand that.
well, beyond that, there can be perspective about lots of trials and tribulations that individuals have suffered or dealt with
Sure.
in the more recent time that often come
Sure.
to the top of people's or the forefront of people's minds about things
Yep.
Yeah.
have suffered. And from what I have seen from people in 2020, be it social media, talking to people in person, things like that, there have been a lot of things happening where it can easily seem a certain type of piling on effect throughout the year, where it seems like a cascade or continuation of bad things that they have been able to observe that, in all honesty, most of which likely never touched them directly. Although I do know a lot of people who suffered some pretty significant challenges this year, and thus hearing a general sense around the world piled onto the little bits or specific, maybe personal things they've suffered, I can see how that all can blend into a sense of just bad. And so it kind of, you could speak about it, I think, from both directions, kind of where what Ken's saying about his lifetime, what has easily been observed, especially for a lot of people since they've ever taken note of their status in life and where things are, to the other side, like Todd, which you were kind of speaking to, that I piped up about the objective state of humanity across the world according to history. And that, in a way, both things are, I think, accurate. And to Todd's point, I would say even that there is a lesson to be had or learned or stated about general how important it is for people to take a moment, step away from what's close to them or what's happening in the moment that may seem especially bad, and reflect a little more on the holistic view of the world or themselves. And in most cases, I would argue, people could see how good life generally can be. But it seems really easy for people to get focused on the things that are bad.
And again, all of that is fine. Anybody who had a bad 2020 wants to give it the finger, I'm all for that. I don't seek to deny you that. What I will say is, get ready, because it's not like the passage of the Earth at an arbitrary point around the sun, and suddenly everything's going to be better.
Sure.
Right? Like 2021 is not going to be measurably better than 2020 was. And in fact, I could make a circumstantial case that's going to be worse.
I would like to hear that. Why would you say that?
Because everybody got what they wanted. The corporatists are now back in control of pretty much everything.
They already were.
So,
I mean, I wouldn't say they weren't before.
So and again, that's not to make this political, but my hope was that somebody rich enough to not have to be beholden to corporations being in high office was going to make a difference. As it turns out, that hope was foolish. In hindsight, I understand that, but we're not supposed to talk about the incoming cabinet. We're not supposed to talk about, like, if you want to be pissed about stuff in 2020, be pissed about the fact that we are never going to find out the truth about how this thing got out in the first place.
About the fact that it was probably originating from Wuhan, you mean?
Yes. There's 6 days where the WHO told everybody that there was no human-to-human transmission, and then suddenly there was human-to-human transmission. And this is back in January, where locking down global travel may have made a difference. Maybe not every place, but in some places.
I mean, sure, China had had this weird, didn't they have that weird involvement with WHO as well, where they're trying to like use their power and their ambassadors and such to spread misinformation about where it came from and how deadly it is and so on, because they didn't want to be blamed or whatever.
So one of the stories that I have vague recollections of, but I can't tell you whether or not it's actually true, is that the guy who was the head of the WHO owed his position to the fact that the Chinese government lobbied for him to get it in the first place. Right. And so there was questions as to whether or not, like, there was some quid pro quo for the, hey, we got you this job, like, could you do something for us? There was,
did you ensure the deaths of hundreds of thousands?
Well, I don't want to say it. I don't want to necessarily say it quite that way. Like, it's entirely possible that whoever it was that, I don't want to say let this out because it adds a nefarious intent that we don't know that is there. But at some point, because it's not like COVID is the only infectious disease to get released in, sort of that area of China, right? Like, there have been others, and in all of those cases, like, the Chinese government locks down travel both locally or both internal and external to China, and that stuff doesn't get out. This one did, for whatever reason. And I just, if you want, it makes me mad to this day that we will never know what the truth about any of that is. Like, there will be no.
And I don't know. It feels very conspiracy theory to me. I mean, I don't think this was a manufactured virus in any which way. I don't believe that's the case. And if it was a pretty impotent one, to be honest. Because while it can, the people it harms are not the ones who are in power, or the ones who, this harms the people at the bottom more than anything. And sure. I don't see how that would be politically beneficial to China or any other, power at hand. But regardless of all of that, I do think that 2020 in general has been a pretty crap year because of COVID. I think that the vast majority of people's lives have been affected in some way, at least minorly. And some people have lost their lives at the opposite side of the scale. And I'd say most people are somewhere in the middle. Some people have lost, a lot of people have become unemployed, lost their jobs, lost their businesses. I feel sorry for this was last month I saw this figure, and I have no doubt that it's increased since then. But last month the figure in America was 100,000 restaurants were closed, 40,000 of which were permanent.
Yep.
Right. I mean, that's just restaurants. And if you think about all the other types of businesses that exist, it's insane. The way this affects the average person. That's why we really need the government to step up and do something about this. Both in terms of ensuring that it didn't spread any further, ensuring that there was vaccines available, ensuring the research on the vaccines was funded and, fairly done through multiple organizations so that there's no, chance of political tomfoolery or whatever, so on, all that sort of fairness. Yep. And I'd say pretty much most governments failed on most fronts. I don't think that, I'm not here to say the UK is doing great because they got the vaccine first. I think that's dumb. I think that the UK screwed up in so many ways. I think any country that has COVID inside its borders, more than New Zealand, let's say, has failed. And even New Zealand failed in some ways. And they've done it astronomically better than everybody else. Mm-hmm. But back to the very original point of this whole conversation is 2020 the worst year in my life? I would say probably. I mean,
okay,
on a personal standpoint, I changed country, and I was expecting to, this to be a year of exploration and really beginning my post-university life, and seeing a new culture, a new country, and getting to meet new people. And I haven't met a single new person since January.
Yeah,
December.
No, that's a fair statement.
Year? Right.
So,
I mean.
Yeah, Okay. So let's parse that, and Hando's actually touched on something that I think I want to get to. I don't know that we can say worst year ever. And look, everybody, I know that that's a colloquialism that I'm taking way too literally. But there are years in which society, as we know it, has collapsed, right? Society, as we know it, has not collapsed. The lights are still coming on. You still have access to the internet. So let me just give you this scenario, and maybe you can help me sort of walk my way through this. Let's say that the vaccine comes out in the early part of 2021, and it gets distributed in sufficient numbers that the human race is able to develop herd immunity by, say, summer, and governments of the world start to give the stamp that says, "Yep, you're allowed to start going back out into the world, and you don't necessarily have to worry about social distancing. You can if you want to, but you don't have to, and you don't have to wear masks in the store anymore, or on public transport, or on all of these things. Again, you can if you want to. You're not required to. You can assemble in groups of more than 10. All of that kind of stuff. And your bosses at work have come to realize that you can be just as effective working from home as you can working from the office. So in the back half of 2020, there are a bunch of measures put in place that say that you have to be in the office either on limited hours because there's office hours, or only a couple of days a week, so that there's in-person meetings that have to happen or whatever. But largely all of this stuff can be done virtually, and so there's no reason why there's no reason why you can't do some amount of your job from home every week, right? And we have this big revolution in white collar work, right? Okay, yeah. Let's say all of that happens. Let's say that in Western democracies, a political revolution happens because everybody finally figures out the fact that most of the Western democracies are run by the neoliberal corporatist monoparty, and the choice that you have is really an illusion of choice unless you want to go way out on the fringe, and it explodes into a new version of radical centrism, just without the corporations, and a huge sort of, I don't want to say anti-corporate, but pro-worker, I think, is where I'm going. This huge wave of pro-worker politicians and political parties and pundits and so on and so forth, revolutionizes the interaction between labor and capital across Western Europe and the United States. And let's say all of that happens inside 2021. Yes, I will agree that 2020 was bad, but we would have never gotten it if all of that stuff that I just said came to pass, which would be better for the overwhelming majority of people. It would be just as easy to say we would have never gotten any of it if it hadn't been for 2020.
That's a good point. I mean, I'm trying not to lead too much into technical terms here, but there's in my research, there's basically in the most basic sense of what my research is about. It's about finding solutions to problems in a general fashion without really thinking with the problem specifically.
Yep.
And a very important facet of this is to not get locked down in looking at one solution too much. Like quite often, if you're looking at solutions to a problem and you find one that's feasible, that works, you'll say, okay, great, we'll just stick with that. What you really need to find a better solution is to shake things up drastically, and that often means destroying parts of the solution. And you can see this throughout history. I mean, I think I said in the pre-show, I've been reading this book about China, the story of China, and it's fascinating to see how sometimes things were going too much in a single direction. That was meaning there's not enough defense, or there's too much culture focus rather than feeding the poor or whatever, right? And generally speaking, what happens is there's some massive chaotic event, such as war or strife or famine or natural disaster that comes into play, that shakes everything up. And I'm not saying those are good things any which way. Please don't think I'm saying that. I'm not even saying they're necessarily required. I like to think that we can have intellectual versions of that, where we can have uprisings that are non-violent. I do hope that's possible. However, it's been proven time and time again that to shake things up in government, in policy, in culture, in society, we do often need some kind of catalyst, some kind of something to take our attention, to force us to think about it, to force us to change our methodologies. And I hope that that's what comes out of 2020. And you're right, Todd. That's a very, very optimistic viewpoint, I think, is to think of 2020 as that catalytic change to the way that we think about politics, the way that we think about everything.
Yeah, and let's be clear. I am monumentally naive, so like I hope for all these things, but it's from a Capra-esque naivete about how things work, right? I mean, in this environment where any moron with a phone can make 60 seconds worth of stupid and post it for all to see, like, I'm asking for a lot, and I know that.
Yeah, I mean, we're the thing is, the world is such a complex network of understanding and events that, no single, like, even the president, well, maybe poor timing for this, but even in the past, any political leader, let's say, rather than the president of the USA, for example, does not have a finite understanding, does not have an infinite understanding of all the occurrences within his or her realm, right? I mean, okay, let's just go with let's go do Germany, because that's probably more appealing to everybody. Let's just imagine that the PM of Germany enacts laws and consideration and puts in policy in place. She isn't considering what Steibel down at the factory, what his work schedule is every single week. She's thinking about the average and the looking at the stats. She doesn't ask every single person and know the intricate details of each and every single person's job. So even those who make policy and make these huge swathing like sort of changes across a land, they don't have the minute detail. They're making guesses on means and averages, and thinking a little bit of the variability, but they don't think with outliers. And so no matter what we do, there's always going to be people who are left out. And our understanding, generally speaking, is never going to be good enough to be able to understand everything. And that's why, in my opinion, I think having a single leader in charge of a country or even a town is really ridiculous, because they can often enact change which doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, you're poking at something there. The idea of localized governance versus I'll say collectivized governance. In the olden days, there was this very distinct hierarchy of government, and at the lowest level, like the school district, and then the level above that, the city or the township, and the level above that, the county, and the level above that, the state, and the level above that, obviously, is a country or the federal government in whatever country you're talking about. And you can see these things; they still exist, right? In Norway, it's cities and communas, fylke, and then the federal Norwegian government, right? And it works. The model is essentially the same. They have different names, obviously, because it's a different language. And there may be some, differences in what one can do in one country versus another country, right? So when people ask about laws in the States, for example, like a lot of times you have to kind of sit back and go, well, you're in, right? Because state laws are not homogenous. And I wonder if we haven't fallen into the trap of thinking that collectivized governance is better than localized governance, and have perhaps massively overstepped that, right?
Oh, and I think maybe I failed to express my point, which is I don't necessarily think that it's based on size. For example, okay, I'm pro-EU, right? I generally think that having a federal government across the EU would be a good thing. I wish that there was an ultimate governing body across all the countries of the EU to ensure human rights and things which can be collectivized. For example, I don't think that they should be able to choose the tax of farmers, right? I think that's a bit ridiculous because it changes country to country. And what a farmer makes in Lithuania versus what a farmer makes in Scotland is going to be massively different. And their circumstances are going to be massively different. Their environment is going to be massively different. If you have the same rules for pesticides in both countries, they're the same, that's going to fail, right? It wouldn't make sense. So local governance is required. But I think the federal government should be required for, overarching things like human rights. I think that LGBT rights can be across the spectrum and across the entire world. I don't think it needs to be localized in any which way. That's why I would vote for it anyway.
Ooh. That's a slippery slope. Do you want to do that kind of stuff on ShowX and Chill?
Yeah, we are getting very political. My final point is that
I don't care about the political part. I care about the seriousness of it. Like, because I'm going to do something silly and say, it's okay in other parts of the world for there to be a barbaric theocracy that oppresses its people utterly. But yet somehow when you cross the border into Europe, suddenly it's not okay. And
I know there's many of my liberal cousins and brothers, not literal family, I mean within my spectrum that I am, who believe that it's okay because it's culture. I have never agreed with that perspective. I think that human rights are human rights regardless.
I'm not challenging you. I'm challenging what I perceive to be a basic worldview. Right, that the Poles aren't allowed to govern. Poles and Hungarians specifically aren't allowed to govern themselves, but Iran can, for reasons that I don't. Again, it's like if we're really gonna do one size fits all, let's really do one size fits all, and then you're gonna have to have a long conversation with both Russia and China because you have to deal with Iran and North Korea. And
I agree, right? I see where you're coming from. And I think that, EU is only a first step towards a global government that would have a federal rule over certain topics. I'm okay with all that. My point is that I just don't think that we can go immediately to that step. I think we need to have much like how countries were formed from towns and villages and city-states, all those forging together. The United Kingdom came from the individual countries forging together for a better good, and often through conquering each other. But generally speaking, I think it's better if it's done through the signing of an agreement of the countries and the amalgamation of cultures. I think the UK is actually a great example because Scotland still exists. Scotland is still a standalone country with its own some devolved government, so that you can have local ordinances and have a local culture, but still part of the larger government. And I think that's generally a good thing, especially when it comes to the EU. And I hope that would be the same when it comes to the world state. That eventually, when we start, exploring space and such, we need to be a united front. We need to be Earth. We can't just be, the US and Russia and China and their friends. That doesn't make sense anymore. That's not going to be doable. We need to be a united front, and I think to get there, that's going to take a few hundred more years. And I agree that should be the end goal. But right now, I think getting the EU together, getting the North America and South America together, and all those individual countries to be friends with each other, and eventually, hopefully, amalgamating into bigger amalgamations would be preferable in the first step.
Okay. I don't really have. I really don't have an argument against that. It's I am. I guess to put it into an applause line, I think I am better suited to know what I want to do with my money than any person in an office building in a federal government building someplace. But again, that's a difference of opinion. I also look at it from the perspective of somebody living in a country with the world's biggest sovereign wealth fund. And somebody at some point, the more integrated Norway becomes with larger bodies. I mean, Norway is not a big country. Norway is not a powerful country. Politically, militarily, it's just not. Economically, it is. And I live in somewhat fear that someone at some point will pop up with an armored division in the middle of Oslo and say, "Hey, guess what? That $1 trillion that you use as a buffer for things that go wrong, that's much better suited in Greece and Spain and Iceland. So we're gonna take it."
I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, having a buffer is a really nice thing to have when you are already a very rich country. And I do think the other countries that are in dire need and unable to do that, and are struggling with basic human rights and struggling to feed the poor and so on, surely that should be a priority. However, that should be Norway's choice as well, though, right? I hope that Norway comes to the point where they say we want to provide that for everybody rather than we have to.
Well, part of the problem with all of this comes out that until you get all of the nation's governments to actually play nice in any form, where you're no longer trying to get a group or region to work to be the most powerful, to claim things upon themselves through violence and other forms of influence, all of this is just fanciful talk about a utopian society that will not happen. Until you actually totally basically separate all countries' borders in the sense that they are not sovereign nations and it's all one world entity that is humanity, none of this matters or makes sense, because you cannot go to countries that are suffering the most and just throw money and effort at them if the regimes in power don't use it for those purposes or intercept it or somehow still keep their population under control. And so I do agree with things in the direction we're going. I mean, I essentially always say that the United States of America is a type of organization of large masses of people that many other entities could find similarity to, and I see it kind of like the EU over Europe, that we are a set of states with individual issues that have a overall commanding structure in the government that tries to essentially keep them all playing nice, and that is, I think, tenable at the moment. And once you try to go beyond that, it becomes harder and harder, unless you get basically you'd have to have things like other countries or states or areas wanting to apply to be part of that organization versus an organization trying to say you need to come be part of us because this is better. And so unless everybody in the world opts in,
it's partly invitation, it's partly application, it's partly there's a process. You need to be able to join by agreeing to certain principles, certain edicts of the country and of the nations. And I think that's a good thing. Saying that you believe in human right X and you will uphold that, and you will forego military spending instead to feed the poor or something, right? Like, that's a basic thing, I think. And yet there's so many countries, including the US, for example, who struggle to do that. They much prefer to put money into the military and elsewhere than the EU did try to go global.
Well, everything you've talked about, Ken, about coming up with policies or ideas that would better overall humanity, I've yet to see the example in our world where it's being done, because I've always seen where levels of personal advancement and greed still seem to trump, and when it comes to a overall societal or governmental implementation of policy, I see little pieces where you have yeah, we're going to throw some goodwill and stuff towards this, but I've yet to see an entire society come together and agree that they need to prioritize the betterment or good of humanity, even in their own region.
Sure.
I don't think.
What are you talking about, Wade? We're getting $600.
I'm not saying this is next week. I'm saying that this is going to be a few 100-year.
Well, I don't know what it's going to take to get there, but until humanity decides that it is more important to keep people healthy, fed, and sheltered than it is for personal baubles and things like that, I don't think we're ever going to see the kind of coming together in humanity that is being theorized here.
You're on that 100%, Wayne. We have to get people to stop misidentifying debt-based consumerism as capitalism. We have to get people to stop looking at economic protectionism as racism. We have to stop. Like we have to get people. we have to get people back to books, and the first book is the dictionary.
I agree with you with one major point there, Todd, which is education is the key to solving all of these problems. I mean, I think a large issue is that we've become blinded as a society. The fact that we are so much better off than our parents and grandparents, because they struggle to eat, and now look at us. We can walk into a Walmart, a Meijer, whatever, and have an insane amount of choice. Which actually leads me on to one of my favorite stats. My favorite, I mean, one of the most depressing. The food that's shown in Walmart and all across stores in the US, not just Walmart, but all superstores, the amount of food that they actually put on sale and is available is enough to feed the entire world. And I didn't know that. Yeah, and I think apparently 60% of it gets thrown out. But having the customizability and the variability brings in people to spend money, so it's worthwhile. They throw out the vast majority of the food that goes on sale in order to make profit, which is a crazy thought.
It doesn't surprise me. We have laws throughout the United States that says we're not allowed to let food that goes past the basic level of shelf life out into the world to feed those who would benefit from even day-old bread and stuff like that, because of because of whatever you want to call the term of companies trying to profit off of the recycling of material through the spaces versus the goodwill and well-being that could be bought from using all that excess to just feed the hungry for free. Like
we got to line the pockets of those who own Walmart, right? That family is way more important than the hundreds of thousands, millions of people who are struggling to feed their children. That being said, all this aside, why are we even paying for food? I mean, I think why is this not just tax?
The monetization of the ability of someone's effort to take the time to actually create the food. I would start at least in the United States. I would start in the United States with more of the why can't we get our food to be food and not poison? But that's just me. Why the U.S. can't get rid of chemicals, colors, and BS that's not even food? Because again, we don't care about the actual health and well-being of humanity. We care about allowing people to make whatever money they choose at the backs of everyone else.
High fructose corn syrup, my friends. High fructose corn syrup.
Coming from a corn-based family, F that crap.
Yeah.
But I'm even of the opinion, and I'd be willing to put aside UBI for this temporarily. If instead of providing UBI to everybody where they can spend their money on whatever they want, if instead all food, especially let's just say healthy ones, but let's just say all food products were slowly subsidized over the years to the point where maybe 10% is taken off the bill and is provided by tax money.
That would not work in the United States, and I think most countries, because it would mean that no company would choose to make one product versus another. All we would have is government cheese.
No, they can
no,
for government.
We wouldn't have any variety because there would be no point in it. And so you wouldn't actually have companies making better noodles, better cheeses, better milk, because everything's subsidized to the point that you all get it anyways. It would just yeah, that's me. That should have fixed it.
Yeah, that's
you did. You did fix it. You know what? We're gonna be a lot less. Depressing. Because Wayne sounds totally depressed.
Well, and I don't. That is depressing.
And I don't want Wayne to be depressed anymore. So I want to talk about why Hando, the AV guy, is 50% less insufferable than he was a week ago.
Why is that?
He moved from Boston.
Did you do it? Oh my God, Hando!
Yeah. It was in the chat. He's like, greetings from Tennessee. I'm no longer Bostonian, but my internet doesn't suck anymore. And truthfully, he seemed 50% less annoying than he was even last week. So I just want to say that so number one, I have to ask if Hando's worked on his accent. Right, because if they find out he's from the north, like I don't know what he's gonna do. And with a thick Bostonian accent, like everybody's gonna know. And number two, like where did he put all of his Patriots, Red Sox crap? Like those are the questions that I have.
Well, that's a hell of a life change.
What accent, Hando? I'll tell you what accent. I went out to Boston in 2005 ish for an interview, and I was staying at a hotel right next to Logan Airport. I had a job interview out in Tewksbury, Mass. The next day, and I went to the hotel bar and I got my food, and I asked the lady who was serving me the food and the beer how to get to Tewksbury, Mass, and she said to me, "By car." And I said, "Yes, by car." She didn't know. In any event, I'm just saying, like in a large storage container, like a proper American. Did you bury it in the backyard? Because if it's discovered, you know what happens to people south of the Mason-Dixon line. All I'm saying, like, you have to be careful, Hando.
Well, that's a big change, Hando. I mean, moving all the way to an entirely different state, different climate. I mean, that's you're gonna feel the difference in the summer. Oh my God.
Yeah, I have to ask, what part of Tennessee? While we're sort of shooting the breeze about this.
Yeah, curious to know. So Hando's always been a long-term listener of the show. Hando's been around for many years, supporting us for many years, and we really appreciate his company. And this is a big change for Hando. I mean, Hando was an AV guy in Boston for ages. Like, that was his thing. He loved it. And now he's moved off to Tennessee to seek new ventures and a new life. That's a hell of a change. And I'm very curious to hear more, Hando. We should hang out soon. You can tell me all about it.
Knox Vegas. Are you suggesting that they have opened up Knoxville, Tennessee to casino gambling? Or is that just because the gold supply of the United States, part of it, is housed there? I'm slightly curious. I'm trying to liven Wayne up a little bit. Wayne comes from the second most insufferable part of the no, I'm sorry. Check that. Third most insufferable part of America. What relative to sports? It's Bostonians, Chicago Cubs fans, and then Cornhusker fans. Because I'll tell you what. Actually, it was funny. I think I was at your house, Wayne, for the first time Wisconsin and Nebraska played each other in football after Nebraska joined the Big Ten, and you and Hostel were you and Hostel were a good time to watch a football game with. I have to say, it was a good time. Not nearly as
I think we both knew at the time what the likely outcome was going to be.
Oh, that's fair.
So what happened? Tell me.
The further away from the actual roots of Nebraska, the more realistic your view becomes of the actual chances your team have in any situation. So Hostel and I used to have more of an acceptance of what the likely outcome of the season was going to be than most of our family back home.
The clear vision of distance, as they say. So what happened in the game? So the sort of subtext to this, and what you sort of need to know is that Wisconsin got this transfer quarterback who's now playing for the Seattle Seahawks, who is pretty freaking good. And so the Corn kept it close for a while, but this guy who was doing grad school and still had a year of eligibility left, and so decided to transfer from NC State to Wisconsin for his last season. Did some work in the second half, and the Wisconsin ended up winning by a comfortable margin. At least that's my recollection of
Yeah, no, that sounds about right.
I honestly, I was worried, based on newness, I guess. Well, so, and again, my remembering of what Nebraska was like as a football program, traditions and whatnot, that they were always strong. And yeah, it's back in the day. And so it was always, for me, I was always worried. You never know how when teams encounter each other for the first time, what that's going to look like, how the story of the game is going to unfold.
So Menno Maths in the chat, he's done not spreadsheet. He did a web tool, I guess you could call it, over the years of Formula One racing.
Oh wow!
And he does like he's a maths guy, right? As you can probably tell by the fact his name's Menno Maths. And yeah, so he did like a Formula One sort of like interface, and he did lots of analysis on games won and races won even, and how they're won and who won them and all this stuff. And it's so like the amount of like statistical applications that there are within sports is just insane. I mean, what you can do with those figures that otherwise make very little sense, like what happens when person X comes into team C. That's such a varied thing. It's anybody's guess what could happen, but you can actually look at the stats and see what how the variances line up, what the most likely outcomes and everything. And that's how gambling is done, right? I mean, if you go into any bet store, that's in the back end in some office somewhere, that's what they do. They hire statisticians to work out the actual mechanics and likelihoods to give themselves the edge, right? It's fascinating. It's its own world of like a microcosm of statistics and maths. It's just fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I agree. The
the thing I find interesting with sports, so that's why I bring it up.
Yeah, well, there's advanced metrics has become kind of a buzzword over the last, I'll say, 10 years. And it first sort of caught on in baseball, then in basketball, and now more recently in American football. And you can there are strategic decisions that are being made now. It's really, I don't know why this is, but it's really apparent to me this season. There are lots and lots of teams going for it on fourth down that you would never see that before. Like maybe in a desperate situation where a team absolutely had to score, that they would go for it on fourth down. But you're seeing teams go for it on fourth down in the very early parts of the game now, where kicking a field goal is okay, but it's only like an 80 something % successful play, and so. If the statistic says that you can get fourth and a yard 95% of the time, why would you kick the field goal? And you're seeing a lot of that now.
I imagine a lot of players are getting instructions from their coaches that neither of them understand. You have to do this game. Why? I have no idea. The analyst told me to.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, and the pioneer of this, got the nickname Riverboat Ron because he got this image of being this big gambler of going for it on fourth down when you shouldn't, and going for 2 on a touchdown when you shouldn't, and doing all of these sort of what would appear on the surface based on gut reflex, high risk, high reward, high risk, high reward sort of plays. And it turns out with the advanced metrics, they're a lot lower risk, higher reward, or a lot lower risk, lower reward than originally thought. Same thing happened in basketball. The only 2 shots in pro basketball that you should take are shots at the rim or inside the painted area, and 3-pointers. Everything else you should not take. Everything else is a bad shot.
It's not worth you losing the ball.
Well, so a good 3-point shooter shoots at about 40% from 3-point range. A long-range 2-point shot is not that much better. That the extra point and lower shooting percentage doesn't offset each other. But a good shooter around the rim makes something like 60% of their shots around the rim. So in that case, it does. Like in that case, the extra field goal percentage for the points scored offsets the extra point and the lack of field goal percentage for shooting threes. So it's weird.
The good thing is that can translate into fairly simple instructions, right? I mean, it's not as if you need to have a thorough understanding of the statistical motivations for your plays. All you need to know is, from now on, you only shoot from there. That's pretty good.
Yeah, right. And I mean, I say always say that if you have a wide open shot, you take a wide open shot, right? But again, if you're going just on just statistically, you want the 38% 3-point shooter taking threes and not 18-foot long 2-point shots. You want your guy who shoots 60% from inside 6 feet, not shooting 12-foot, 12-foot or 14-foot shots. If you can get away with it. So it has somewhat homogenized the game a little bit, but the mid-range guy is now largely dead. If you can shoot threes and play defense, there's a spot for you in the league. If you're really tall and can dunk, there's a spot for you in the league. If you can play good defense by the rim, there's a spot for you in the league. But if you can only shoot 20-foot jump, 20, 18, 16-foot jump shots, good luck. Because there's not a lot. There's not a lot for you out there in the at least professional level. So, yeah, but that's all advanced. But that's all advanced statistics, which were where we started all of this on. So,
sports are really interesting in the fact that they are. Okay, this is ridiculous, and I'm being stupid. But I have this. Maybe I'm trying to just find reasons for the fact that I don't really like sports. I don't know, but sports are so entirely based on your pot of the luck genetic makeup at birth, right? It's like basketball is a great example. Like height, right? Height is almost like entirely like 80%, and that's not a real statistic, but it's massively skewed towards tall people and winning and victories and success in basketball, sure. Right? Like if you're tall, you're going to perform better than your shorter counterparts, regardless of skill, right?
Up to a point.
Yeah, up to a point, right? Let's say everybody gets the equal amount of training or close to equal. They're all trained by professionals. They all have good nutrition. They're all, all environmental factors are effectively catered for. At that point, you're basically betting on who's tallest, right? At that point, in my opinion, and I find that so odd. I mean, like, is it much of a game when skill has little to do with it at that point, and it's more just your genetic makeup? It's one of the things that kind of pissed me off about sports.
You are undervaluing the skill sets that these people have. right? I mean, because the tallest players, the 7'6" 7'7" players, were not the best. You know, the three people that you would make an argument for, maybe four people that you would make an argument for best player ever, are all between the height of 6'6" and 6'9". So even the 7-footers, of which there have been a ton, right? Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Anthony Davis is, I think, 6'11". So he's right there. Tim Duncan, you know, lots of these guys, all of whom were skilled players. Don't get me wrong, but the handful of people, like the top 5 people that you would say these are the best basketball players of all time, are all between 6'6" and 6'9".
Well, fine. That doesn't change my point, though. I mean, just because there's a sweet spot still, it still means the genetics are still overwhelmed, right?
Well, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not suggesting the genetics don't matter at all. All I'm saying is I think you're slightly underestimating what superior skill set can mean.
Sure. Yeah. And I guess it's kind of a silly argument to have, because you can argue the same with anything, right? I mean, you could argue academic merit. In the end, there is some genetic element to intelligence, right? I mean, I'm not trying to claim that it's racially based. I've actually read studies that prove it's not. But there is a genetic element.
That's just it's just a stupid argument. It is.
It devalues the things we care about. In which case, is there any point in making the argument in the first place? I guess. I don't know. It's an interesting one.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, the race and IQ argument is a stupid argument.
Oh, right. Okay.
Not your argument. Your argument is a good argument, and I think you should make it. No, the race. I'm sorry. I had a visceral reaction to the race and IQ argument. As you mentioned, I apologize. I did not.
No, that's okay. I was perfectly okay with you making that point. If you did make that point, anyway, you can say my argument is stupid without calling me stupid. That's okay. I'm okay with that. No, of course, race and IQ are unrelated. I mean, all the studies that have been done that show there's any differences in race and IQ are in fact showing there's difference in class, and that's all that's ever shown. And I actually read a book on this recently by a geneticist in the UK. I then discussed it with my professor, who's an animal science genomics professor, very, very well known in his field, and he said, "Oh well, there's some parts that are wrong, but he's got the right idea," and we went through like an hour of discussing it. And I can now safely say I've talked to some of the experts, not necessarily in human genetics, but in genetics in general, who has said that race has absolutely nothing to do with IQ, and everybody who says that clearly is misrepresenting results that they've read. Like they have no idea, and they're putting their own confirmation bias behind stuff, right? But IQ does seem to be related to intelligence, IQ does seem to be related to genetics in some respects. But again, it's more environmental. It's more to do with your nutrition throughout your childhood and teenage years, especially, as well as schooling, as well as effort, as well as culture. Right? I mean, if you look at the Chinese and Japanese, generally speaking, they tend to perform better in many testing environments because it's part of the culture. It's about, like, here, if you come home with a D instead of the expected B, your father might say, "Oh, you'll do better next time, son." Whereas in like China or Japan, you would be like a disappointment and bring shame to your family. Like,
yes,
and that's something that I'm not saying it's necessarily a good thing. I'm not arguing it's good or which one's better or whatever. I mean, I think that the high suicide rate in a lot of school children in Eastern countries says a lot about that as well. But so does the higher rate of testing. So, Anyway, we've got on a very meandering side topic from 2020 was a bit crap, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And at this point, it's probably good for us to take a break at the top of the hour here. So for everyone who's been watching, we're going to put a little bit of music out there so you have a moment to go refresh your drinks, run to the washroom, whatever it is you might need to do. And we'll be back in just over 4 minutes, as we're going to be listening to an OC remix of the song from the game Shenmue, The Phoenix Rises. And we will continue here on ShowX, here on twitch.tv, just after this break. Ah, baby, and then, like, the thing is not playing. What happened? No, I think what it is, I'll get it fixed here in just a moment, everybody, is that as I was fixing the little... Well, I was fixing the sound on, like, the stuff happening, and it reset where the music was being sent. And so, as I do this...
It's a fake audio line or something.
Now we got it. Here
there
we go,
it is.
everybody.
listening to ShowX on VtWProductions.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the show as we are taking some time to hang out here and just whatever comes to mind this last show of 2020. Kind of, grab your drink, sit down, have a conversation, and hope that all of you are having a happy set to your holidays and hopefully a better end to the year than many may have had throughout. And so, with that, we continue.
Speaking of which, what were your guys' resolutions for the new year? Do you have any?
Oh, you stole my thunder. I've been thinking about this. In fact, I made a joke with the father-in-law on Christmas Eve saying that I had to start doing something to excess so that I could make up a New Year's resolution to stop doing it.
Huh.
You start drinking heavily. That's a fun one.
Yeah, well, that's meh. That's not going to go very. That's not going to go very well with the diet, unfortunately. I thought about that. It's like, I could.
Well, actually, if you want any help, I actually calculated the most caloric empty alcohol that you can have is actually a vodka with Pepsi Max or Diet Coke or similar, because a vodka only a shot of vodka I think has 20 calories, and then Pepsi Max or similar has 0. So you can have, multiple drinks a day. You can drink the whole bowl of vodka and still be well intake for the day.
Now you're talking.
You have just given me the plan for how to end out the year.
Yeah, that's.
that's why I call the
Wayne's gonna end up at the Costco, and it's like I need 2 pallets of vodka and 1 pallet of Pepsi Max.
Pallets. Yeah. For the end of the year, that's what 4 days worth of vodka. My God.
Just means you gotta get started.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know what? I don't know about you, but I haven't worked in almost 10 days now. So there's no time to start like the present. Although I have to say, Hando, we are going to get to your question in the chat in just a second, but I got to say, Norway takes its holidays really seriously. And so stores were open Christmas Eve until either 4 or 6 p.m. They were closed Christmas Day. They were closed yesterday because it's under Juledag, or second Christmas Day. And today was Sunday. So most stuff wasn't open. The first day that things are going to be open again is tomorrow. So, that's one of the things, you think about America, Christmas Day, Thanksgiving Day. I'm trying to think of other day. I think those two are the 2 big ones.
That's pretty much it. New Year's Day, maybe. But days when not much is open in America and in Europe. Wayne, you and I had talked offline about me building a new PC this spring, and I was thinking about, I could put it together this summer over summer vacation, because there's no guarantee we're going to be able to go anyplace for summer vacation because the plague could still be on, and so we may not be able to travel anyplace. And it was perfect. I'll take my 3 weeks in July, like the rest of Norway does. And I'll be able to buy all the parts and assemble it. And then I got to thinking, there's this thing called Easter, and they take a very traditional view on Easter here with respect to days off. So I get Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Monday, which has a name, but I can't remember what it is, because I'm a bad Catholic or a Halflick. So yeah, I was like, oh, you know what? I could do it around Easter. I could buy a couple of parts in January and a couple of parts in February and a couple of parts in March, and Easter's right around the end of March, beginning of April. And I could have all my piece parts together and put it together during Easter.
and have it in the spring. So anyway, Hando in the chat says, "Did you guys pick up anything new from the Steam sale? And what are your top 3 games on your wish list?"
Wait a minute. We didn't do our resolutions.
Oh, shoot, resolutions. I'm sorry. I do have one. You're right, Ken. My bad. Sorry, Hando. You're gonna have to wait a little bit longer.
We'll definitely get to you, Hando. But I'm curious to hear what everybody's resolutions are.
No,
I haven't quite chosen mine.
I think my resolution for next year is going to be to not spend any money until on my hobbies until the thing has been out.
The thing?
No more pre-orders?
Whether it be a game or a movie or a piece of technology, like I'm not going to pre-order, I'm not gonna crowdfund. Not like I was crowdfunding to begin with, but that would be another
way. You're going to continue doing what you're already not doing is your plan.
Well, no, but I'm not gonna pre-order stuff. Like I'm not gonna impulse buy. Like the thing with Cyberpunk 2077, right? I saw that it was out on Steam, and I just bought it because I wanted to play it, right? I didn't do any research into it. All I knew is that it looked awesome when I saw things about it, and John Wick is in it. And beyond that, it was just like, well, obviously I'm playing that game, like purchase for myself, download thing. What do you mean I can't play it on my PC?
Yeah, that was maybe an unwise purchase at that point. Yeah.
So hex editor away. But no, it's just I have a set of money that I use for my primary hobby, which again, you all, if you're listening, this should have a primary hobby that you spend your disposable income on, and nobody should get to judge you on whatever that hobby is. So long as it doesn't affect your real life. So, but I am my New Year's resolution is to spend my disposable income on my hobby in a more responsible way.
That's a good resolution. That's a good self-improvement. It's good for your finances. It's good for your general life. I approve. Very good one.
Thanks. Wayne?
What about you, Wayne? Do you have a resolution?
Well, as Todd was starting to talk about his, I already had kind of come to a somewhat similar mindset of if I were to actually try to do something that is, to better myself in the future, I guess, or something resolution-wise, I don't know. Around the hobby would probably be a good option of something I should look at. And in a similar sense, not impulse buying, or I guess the better one for me would probably be to get to a point where I'm not deficit purchasing, as is so common in this country. That if I'm going to buy something, to have the resources available ahead of time, and I am on track to allow myself to do that.
That's a good resolution, sir.
As I'm sitting here, thinking, well, it's not the new year yet, so why shouldn't I buy a new monitor right now, even though the ones I want are not out yet? when this ridiculous...
So it's the same thing as the graphics card, right? I want this one that's not available. I may as well get this one instead.
Well, yeah, in a way, yes. And my logic states that because I've got a 4K monitor as my primary and a 1080p 27-inch monitor as my secondary, that unfortunately this new video card, as fancy as it is, does not like having to be pushed through 2 active display ports to DVI adapters. And so depending on what I'm running, my screen will just blank out and then come back, or half of it, and it's doing very odd things, and it's very frustrating when gaming.
Yep.
Thankfully, during the show, I seem to have the right windows open to keep it happy so it stays lit.
Yay!
But...
Well, there's an idea. Can you sell that one that you've got? And you said it was worth quite a bit of money in its original...
originally it would have been worth... I don't even the damage state today, it's probably worth... I don't know. If you were to try to buy one, it would probably be like $30,000.
Well, you might want to look into selling it. That could probably cover the costs of your new monitor.
I don't know if anyone would because of the damage it has on it. Yes, if I could sell it even for $5K or something, it would cover a whole new computer build Why would you put such logic in my head? I was just going to move it down into my basement. Ken. I was going to put it down in my basement, get a wall mount for it, put it into the concrete down there over my arcade box, and run it with my main box so that I can do arcade games on it. And because it's 4K, on occasion when I'm doing like soldering or want to look up technical designs, I could have a 4K display zoomed in at 56-inch and actually see the stuff on the screen. I mean,
yeah, but you could also sell that and buy a new 4K display as well as the one for your main setup and still have money left over.
What are you doing talking about logic? You're hurting me, Ken.
Bad ideas, or good ideas, I guess. But I agree with your original sentiment of the wise spending. I think that's something we should all learn from in this climate where we are encouraged by the economy to spend and buy things we want without thinking we're saving. And I know I've been guilty of that as well. I'm still paying off debts in the UK.
You say that. It's not the economy, it's popular culture. Like, sure. The economy and the drivers of the economy are telling you a very different story than what popular culture and the media, et cetera, is telling you. What? Okay. 40% of global GDP, the central banks behind 40% of global GDP have told you that asset prices are going to be protected at all costs. Mm-hmm. And if you want a quantity on that,
can you dumb that down for the average person?
Sure.
What is that?
Okay. So the Federal Reserve, the central bank in the United States, and the European Central Bank, the central bank for the European Union, are spending $75 billion a month buying government bonds. Okay?
What is a bond?
Okay, so a bond is just a government IOU, just government debt. Okay, so what it's doing is it's essentially dumping $75 billion a month into either the United States or the European Union money supply every month, and they've been doing this for all of 2020 and maybe a little bit of 2019, but definitely for all of 2020. Right? And there's no inflation, supposedly. Right? So there's no increase in the cost of goods. There's no increase in the cost of the stuff that you buy in the grocery store every day. And yet all of this money is being dumped into the economy. Well, that inflation all shows up someplace and it's assets, right? Like your house or your stocks, right? We just went through a year of massive unemployment and people losing their jobs and rent and mortgage moratoriums and all of this stuff, and yet the stock price, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is threatening its all-time high. Like, how? It does not make sense. Like the things that have been happening to with the economy at large and what's happening in the stock market do not make sense at all. So it had, the increase of the stock market's got to be coming from someplace, and it's not coming from the people. It's not coming from the economy just working the way it's supposed to. So it's got to be this. They call it quantitative easing. Is the name for it, and it's what you have to do when you've already dropped interest rates to zero, and you can't drop them anymore. Although there's a couple of places in Europe that are trying negative interest rates.
That's a curious. I've never heard of that before. That's really an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So don't save. Like, right? And so okay. So this is happening, right? We know this is happening, and it's going to happen for the foreseeable future. Like, nobody's put an end date on it. Nobody's talked about when interest rates are going to go back up. So this is a until further notice sort of
arrangement.
This is an arrangement that's until further notice. And Spencer's hit on the key. Don't save your money. That's what you're being told. Don't put your money in a simple savings account. Either use that money in the economy to buy things, preferably on credit, or what you could do with it is buy assets. And the people with the ability to buy assets are buying assets, which is why the stock market is at an all-time high. Or one of the reasons why the stock market is at an all-time high. So 40% of GDP of global GDP is telling you to do that. And I would say higher, but we have no idea what's really going on in China, right? It's like the economy is like everything else over there. We have no idea. Their economic ministers are going to tell you things. They're not true. So I would say more, but we don't know what China's doing. So the United States and Europe have decided that this is what's going to happen. We're going to protect asset prices at all costs, and sovereign debt be damned, sort of. And yeah, so if you know this, the thing to do is to get rid of all of your short-term high-interest debt. Get rid of all of it.
That's always smart anyway, regardless of situation.
Sure, it is smart anyway, but in an environment in which there's inflation, right, that debt goes down normally over time, right? Because you have to pay the same amount of money, whether it's time now or time in the future, when inflation has made that money worth, is less, essentially,
sure,
overall. But so the idea is to pay down all of your short-term high-interest debt as quick as you possibly can, and then take the money that you did use to pay that debt down and put it into assets, right? And even if it's $100 a month, right? If you can make the minimum amount to get some sort of an investment account at your bank, or figure out what the minimum is to buy into a mutual fund and use like a simple savings account, just as like a holding place to come up with that minimum, whatever it is, to open up just a very basic a long-term investment account, mutual fund account, or something like that. Like, dude, that is the signal that you're being given of what you should do. And I can tell you this much: the little bit of dabbling that I've been doing is conservatively beating what you would get from a simple savings account 10-1.
Oh, that's easy though. I mean, you can put your money in the washing machine and you'll get more out than you would in a personal savings account right now.
Well, sure, but I mean, okay, so maybe I was thinking 1%. I was thinking a simple savings account at 1% interest, but they aren't getting that. They're getting like a quarter of a percent interest. Yeah. So it's really like 40 or 50-1. And in fact, it's probably even more than that, but I haven't done the calculation in a little while. So, right. So just
it's a scary time though, isn't it? I mean, like you're getting told to invest or use the money on credit and such, and you're thinking about like putting into stocks or similar, but that's a gamble in some sort. I mean, there's always the different levels of risk and stuff, low, medium, high. Right. It's still a risk, especially with the way the economy has been in the past 10, 20 years. You don't know what's going to happen in 2 months' time. It's terrifying.
It's true. You cannot take that money that you were thinking about putting into a simple savings account and put it into an investment grade account and pretend like it's in a savings account. Like this is stuff that you would be keeping for the long haul anyway, and you're just putting it in a place that sure has more downside risk, but the upside reward, at least for the time being, is just so much higher. There will be a point where you will want to pull that out and put it under your mattress, and hide it that way. But
I don't know. I'm pretty like when I say old school in this sense, I mean like hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years old school. Money is such a variable, right? Having your assets in money is such a contentious thing. I imagine you're in Zimbabwe, right? Over the past 30 years. Can you imagine if you had legitimate money? How mad would you be right now?
Sure.
And so many people lost out their entire livelihood, their lifetime work over a screw up that somebody else made. That's just so depressing and sad, and it could happen here. You never know, right?
Sure.
And that's why I'm generally of the opinion that having your money somewhere that's not in its purest liquidated form is generally wise. Be it stocks, be it property. I think property is generally quite a good move.
Yep.
Tech companies tend to be where it's at, though. If you invest in a tech company, you're generally speaking going to be making your money back because they've been on the up and up for 20 years. I mean, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook. Choose one, right? I mean, if you can afford to put money into it, I bet you this time next year you'll have made money, right?
Yeah. So I can tell you
have enough of a deposit to put money in there.
Yep. I can tell you the two of the sectors that I'm in. One is tech, and the other one is environment.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we're going to have to make changes with the environment soon. Like, and the amount of technology and research and production that's going to be behind that is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And if you're at and right now we're barely beginning to scratch the surface, right? I mean, in the near future, especially when it comes to energy and such, if you start thinking with that, if you're investing in some of the research or some of the production of solar farms or air or whatever, you in 10 years time, you'll be making a lot of money, I think.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And I keep harping on this. I don't want it to seem like I don't want it to seem like I'm like some fancy, super fancy and throwing thousands of dollars at this stuff. Literally my monthly contribution's about $100.
Well, you're doing more than me, sir. I literally am still just trying to pay off debts. I don't.
Sure, I know, and I'm not. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying at all. I just, no, when I talk about this stuff, it comes off like I'm, I speak passionately and authoritatively, and make it sound like I've got just tons and tons and tons of money on the line, and it's not really the case at all. I take the money. I take the money every month that I would be dumping into a simple savings account, if a simple savings account or some sort of managed retirement account, that I just sort of set aside, and that money's just gone, right? But I've been doing it now for 2.5 years, I think, and it's grown from 1,200 the first year into it's multiplied a couple of times already. So yeah, it's just you can do it at sort of any income level. I don't want anybody out there to make the choice between me mouthing off and eating. Right. That's not the point of this. Like, survival first.
Investing your health is always the best choice. If you can, if it comes to putting $30 in the savings or $30 in a gym membership, go for the gym membership, man. Seriously. I mean, the amount of money you save in your health in the future by doing that is impossibly high.
Speaking of, I'll tell you what. So I've been on keto for 9 weeks. And our food expenditures are about the same or a little lower than they were not on keto.
That's nice.
How are you feeling in terms of keto over that time?
And here, holy cow, dude! It's not even comparable. It's so much night and day. The ultra low carb, higher fat. Medium protein sort of diet. My energy's just gone through the roof. Like I've got more energy. I'm springy and bouncy, and
and if you
you
call
know,
now on 555 Todd's diet plan, you will get
that's
absolutely
right.
nothing.
For just 199.99, I'll tell you what the secret to the thing is. No, but in all seriousness, like the food is easy to make. I am somewhat starting to chafe a little bit under lack of variety, but I think Christmas has helped because I haven't been for the last 3 or 4 days I haven't been journaling at all because I wasn't gonna
you need a break in the holidays. That's
I wasn't gonna wrap myself around the axle over the fact that I had some gingerbread cookies, right? Like it's not worth it. It's not worth having the discussion over the fact that I'm not eating carbs as to why I'm not eating any root vegetables at Christmas dinner. Like that's not worth it. So you just take a couple of days. My carb intake has been extraordinarily high, but as of today, like I'm back on it for the most part. And starting tomorrow, it'll be sort of much more hardcore. Or in fact, I'll probably go back to journaling as of tomorrow morning. And I'll be right back on it. And can't say enough good about it. What's that?
I was saying, Wayne, what about you? Are you still sticking with your diet? How's that going?
I haven't been on keto for a minute, man. When I was on it, it went well. For me, it's been more of a, I got off of it, not for the best of reasons, but also walking into holidays at the same time. And it caused me to go off quite a bit, and so I gained way more back and all these things. The challenge I'd run into that got me off of it when I did was that I tried using something that I think was not the best. It was like a production keto quote friendly type of shake or such, and it jacked me up for a while. And
really?
Yeah, it basically, whatever it was, a combination of that and maybe something else, put me in severe heartburn and constant hiccups for about a week and a half I basically did not sleep for almost 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And in order to come off of that, I had to basically give up keto for a minute to eat nothing but rice and very non-acidic things. And all
sure. I remember when you first had that, I didn't realize it went on for so long though. God.
It was almost 2 weeks of absolutely no sleep and constant pain. And so
oh wow, I'm really sorry to hear that, dude.
Yeah, so it was something where whatever that happened with it, that I don't know if the right word is scared me, put me off, whatever, enough that I was just like, I am not going to be pressing keto for a minute based off this. And I haven't gone back since. It was good at the time when I had gone because I had lost 50, almost 60 pounds on keto.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a lot, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, so. It's been 9 weeks and I'm down 25 pounds ish.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you what, and it doesn't feel, and here's the difference. I've done a handful of restrictive food plan, lifestyle changes, diets, whatever you want to call them. And the same thing always happens, whether it be the 17-day diet, whether it be the whole 30, whether it be the stuff that they were even teaching me in this program that I was in, that I've been in for the last year. I could eat a full plate, huge heaping plate that was exactly in accordance with whatever meal plan you're talking about. And I would no more than put my fork down and to be ready to hunt, to kill animals, to find meat so that I could eat again. And I was always hungry, right? Always. Just
I get what you mean. Even though your stomach's full, you had that nutritional requirement that wasn't filled. I get that.
I don't know if it was that or if it wasn't triggering the right hormones. Because obviously I was eating a ton of food, right? But I never felt full. Or I felt full and was hungry anyway. Since I've started keto, I don't have that problem at all. And in fact, my wife and I are mixing in a sort of a limited intermittent fasting where we're only eating 2 meals a day. And so our first meal of the day is at noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and our second meal of the day is at 7 o'clock at night. And then we don't eat from 7 o'clock at night until noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. So there's like a 16-hour or about a 16-hour fasting period.
I'm not going to comment on the keto side of things, but in terms of intermittent fasting, I know I've read stuff that says there's a lot of health benefits to intermittent fasting. I think the human body was over history meant to, take time to find food and not have a plentiful supply consistently.
Sure.
So I think for whatever reason, our genetic makeup means that we do benefit from intermittent fasting occasionally, and it's a good thing. From what I've read anyway so far, preliminary results of fasting seem to be good.
And I'll tell you that trying to do something like that on the Whole30 or the 17-day diet or whatever, I would have been impossible. Like, I would have gone insane. Doing it on and I don't think I'm doing keto exactly right. I'm doing either a dirty keto or more of an Atkins style because I think my protein intake is still too high. For a real, super clean keto. My carb intake is certainly low enough, but my protein intake, I think, is too high. In any event, whatever the super low carb thing, whatever its proper name is for it, the super low carb diet has made it very, very easy for me to only eat 2 meals a day and to have an overall caloric intake that's in the 2,000 to 2,200 range. And just looking on my Fitbit right now, my Fitbit says that I burned 3,411 calories today.
Wow. What did you do? Did you climb a mountain this morning?
No, I'm a big dude. A big and heavy dude, and I have been doing a fair bit of walking around the house today, because I defrosted the freezer.
Right.
So
that can be surprisingly, depending on how you did it. If you're doing it manually, there's a lot of effort required in that.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of it manually. I have to find the circuit breaker that the refrigerator is on, and then I found it and turned it off. Unfortunately, it's on the same, so all of the lights and one set of outlets for the kitchen is on the same circuit as the refrigerator. So only 1 cup of coffee this morning. Until the fridge was finished defrosting. But I took all the food out. We got my one of the Christmas presents from my company from last year was an insulated picnic basket. And so I took all the food out from the freezer and I sorted it into the stuff that was definitely freezer burned and needed to be thrown away, and the stuff that I was going to keep. And everything that I was going to keep went into the picnic basket. And I pulled the trays out and then left the refrigerator door open for 6 hours. And you would look occasionally. I had to swap. I had to swap towels because the towel. I was using this system of towels to try and keep the water from going all over every place, and I had to swap. I had to swap towels because the first towel was completely drenched with ice cold water. So I had to do a couple of towel swaps in there too.
Speaking of saving money, pro tip, if you haven't done it in a while, defrost your freezer. Getting that crap out of there will save you so much on your energy bill.
Yep.
So back to, sorry, if you're done with your tale, Todd, I wanted to return back to the resolutions thing. So I was hoping to share mine. I've
Yeah,
had
of course.
time to think about it.
Good.
So, for those who aren't aware, I think I mentioned it before briefly. 2 weeks ago, I received some. I went to the cardiologist, and he received some news about my heart. So I've been getting tests done. So far, it's only been blood tests, and I'm now scheduled for an ultrasound. Now that they think that they've got a basic diagnosis. I can't remember the name of the thing they said. And they said they don't want to really maybe think that it is definitely this until we have it, for certain that it is this. But anyway, he basically thinks that most commonly in my age group, when people have the symptoms I have, which is I once in a while have a sort of attack, not a heart attack, but I call it an attack anyway because it's like it's a temporal thing that comes and goes. But when it comes, it lasts for 2 to 5 days. It only comes maybe once every couple of months, every 6 months, or every 12 months. It's pretty sporadic. But basically, what it is I get super lightheaded, and I can feel my heart missing beats. And it's a really weird feeling because it's like extremely anxiety-inducing as well because you're sitting there and then you just feel this it's like you suddenly are looking over a cliff edge, like that feeling of your heart stopping. It feels like that. But I got it maybe like 5 to 6 times a minute for 3 days. Like it's hard to sleep with. Yeah, it's really scary, and it's really hard to sleep with and everything. And I went to the doctor in Scotland with this originally a few years ago, and they said it's just anxiety, chill out, go home. And I was like, okay. Socialized healthcare is great for many things. It's not great for the obscurities and the, at the time I was 27, so a 27-year-old dude with heart problems, yeah, right, get out. That's kind of their opinion. But here they're like, oh, you've got good insurance. Let's run all the tests. Let's make sure everything's okay here. And I got a good cardiologist. I was actually referred to him, which was great. And yeah, he seems to think that what it basically is I have probably have a single wall in either one of my ventricles or my atriums, which is particularly flexible and weak. Just genetic unluckiness, just a mutation that makes it that way. And he says it won't be much of a big deal for most of my life up until I start getting symptoms, which is now, I guess. And what it basically means is that there's going to be a bunch of stimulants upon my heart, mainly diet-based, such as caffeine, alcohol, drugs, including like marijuana or whatever, and even NSAIDs like ibuprofen can have an effect, or aspirin. So he says what I need to do is we're going to get an ultrasound to confirm it. But in the meantime, I need to stay away from caffeine and alcohol entirely, right? Like that is no longer in my diet for the rest of my life if this is the right diagnosis. So I can never drink again. I can never drink coffee again. I can never have a beer. I can never have whiskey. I mean, there's a slight leniency if I'm extremely careful. Like if I have a big meal and I have a really small glass of wine or something, it's probably fine. Or if I cook with wine, then it's probably fine. But for the most part, I can't drink anymore. So the reason I say this backstory for my New Year's resolution is that I've already for the past 2 weeks been having to sort of start my New resolution, which is I'm going to have to cut down caffeine entirely and alcohol as well. I used to drink maybe 2 to 3, sometimes 4 times a week, which is not great, right? I mean, it's not so I'd be getting drunk every one of those nights, but have a drink, and I enjoyed that. That's just my lifestyle, partly my culture, and it's pretty common, I think, in Scotland to drink that much. Not saying it's okay. I mean, that is clearly too much for anybody to drink. Anyway, so it's quite hard to give up on alcohol that frequently, and I did feel it, and I still do feel pangs of sadness when I see a bottle of wine sitting there that my wife has, and I'd love to have a glass, and it's particularly hard with coffee as well. I found that even decaf gives me heart murmur. Like I can feel it sort of starting. Wow. So I can't even drink a full glass of decaf. So what I do now is I have like a half cup of decaf with a meal and, with milk, like I'm filling the other half. So it's crazy. I actually managed to splurge on Christmas Day and enjoy some other foods that are a bit fattier than I normally would have. And everything's been fine so far, probably because I've been good the past few weeks. And I was also told to eat lots more, healthy fats. So I'm eating lots of nuts. I'm eating lots of avocado right now, and it's fine. I'm exploring new dietary palates, and it's not a bad thing. I'm trying to take this as an excuse to cook more and have fun with that. It's a rather sad thing, It's next year I've got Graham, my buddy's wedding, and I'm the best man, and I'm not going to be able to drink in my buddy's wedding. I'm not going to be able to toast him. I'm going to have to toast him with orange juice or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's sad,
Yep.
So that's my resolution, is that I need to continue what I've already just started, of no alcohol and no caffeine, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
So, would you like some armchair psychologist advice?
Sure.
Okay. So, one of the things that I noticed between being on all of the other food plans and whatnot that I've been on, and being on this one this time, was about mindset, in which like the Whole30 or the 17-day diet, it was very much focused on the things I couldn't eat. And this time I am very much focused on all the things I get to eat.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I have the same feeling with this. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. So, and then for anybody out there in the chat, like if you're thinking about making a lifestyle change, perception is reality. And if you approach your lifestyle change from the positive view of the things that you still get to do, rather than the things that you don't get to do or have to cut out or can't do anymore, it will help a fair bit, or at least it is helping me a fair bit.
Yeah.
So
that's some good insight. That's a good insight from your own personal experience. Thank you, Todd.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my New resolution. Anybody else in the chat, feel free to tell us yours. We're interested, and you also email them. In. Also for the next show as well. We'll happily talk about that next show as well.
Yep.
So tell us VtWShowX@gmail.com, or just say in the chat. Tell us what your New Year's resolutions are and what your plans are. My general tip for resolutions is simply this. I said this I said this on Christmas Day on my stream as well. I talked a little bit of this. We are very prone to making grandiose resolutions for a new year, and that is often why they fail. And I used to be very disillusioned with the idea of resolutions, because I used to think, what's the point? They almost always fail. I think statistically it's only 95% of them fail, right? And it's because, but I've realized it's because we always will say things like, I'm going to lose 12 stone, or I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. We might do it for a week or two and then we'll fail. And it's because that's way too hard. Like, that's obviously not going to work. Instead, make really minor changes that can stick, and then let them add up over the years. I mean, if you otherwise fail and do nothing, a little change is a much better approach, and going to have much more of an impact than a big change that doesn't stick. So, instead of saying I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week, maybe make it, I'm going to go to the gym at least once a week. Like that small improvement, or even I'm going to go for more walks. I'll walk the dog for 10 more minutes a day. If you do that, that's a huge improvement for your personal health and your heart and so on. Little things like that can really add up. Diet, behavioral changes, habit changes. Like, don't just say I'm going to quit smoking in the year. You're going to fail. You will fail if you try to quit smoking in the new year. Instead, say in January, I'm going to have I don't know, say you smoke a pack a day. Say you're going to smoke a pack a day -1, right? So for all of January, you're going to smoke 30 less cigarettes. And then in February, you can do it again. Take away another 30 throughout the month, right? And so on. Do it like that. That's the best way to do it, I think. And then again, that's armchair psychology. I'm no specialist. It's just my own personal experience.
No, you're 100% right. What is a resolution but a goal? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I dropped a link in the chat. You don't have to necessarily use that, but what you're looking for is the SMART, SMART, goal setting model. And it talks about all the things that if you comply, all the things that in writing a goal to make it comply with this SMART model, your goals will be much more achievable than, as you said, writing these grandiose things. So, Hando, I think it was mentioned in the chats, and more salmon. Yeah, I'm eating a ton of salmon and a ton of avocados.
Oh yeah.
Well.
Man, I love both. Yeah.
Well, so I did. Wayne mentioned smoothies, and I found a pretty wicked low carb, high fat smoothie recipe That's milk, Greek yogurt, avocado, peanut butter, baking cacao, and an artificial sweetener. And you wouldn't think baking cacao would be on the list of things that you can do, but it's on the list of things that you can do. Yeah, it makes a really, really wicked, really wicked, thick, milkshakey like thing for the morning, and it's good and thick, and it's got a hint of the avocado, but it's not too oily. It tastes like a Reese's peanut butter cup, honestly, is what it tastes like. And that ain't bad. That ain't bad.
That sounds really tasty, man. I'm
sorry, I have to switch subjects. I just thought of it, and we only have like 8 minutes to go left in the show. Did one of you guys answer an email to the show inbox in the last?
I've literally not opened the show inbox in like 4 months now.
Well, it's I'm kind of looking at Wayne.
I usually do
because my dad sent an email in.
Well,
and he said he got a response back.
Actually responded to an email?
Uh-huh.
Oh. Maybe?
And I don't have access to the show email box, nor do I necessarily want it, but I would love to know what the actual email was, because he was talking to me like I had seen it, and I obviously have not.
Interesting, because I looked just in like sent mail from our email thing, and I don't see any responses we've had in the past.
Did he send it to our old email address?
That would be one of my questions.
I don't know. He said he sent in an email, but it may have been a chat message too. I don't know. I didn't see it in the chat last week, but he said email.
Interesting.
Okay, let me do that weird thing where I reactivate my Facebook. I'll check the ShowX page and have a look there, because I believe that we have a couple of admins on there, so it could have been somebody else.
I can look at that as well, because I might have done that.
Okay.
Actually, inbox.
Maybe yeah.
It could be on the Facebooks.
Okay.
Checking the Facebooks now. There is some stuff in the inbox. Let me go look.
Because I've had some come in where I was kind of like, I'm not sure who this is or whatever, but depending on what the comments were.
Well, to be truthful, I was just stunned that my family members were listening to the show, because they didn't listen to the old show. I can tell you that.
Let's see. Yes.
My family members occasionally tune in, but only to like surprise me. Like on Christmas Day, I had like 5 family members show up. That was really surprising. My gran listened in.
No, that was fantastic. I thought it was really awesome. By the way.
Well, definitely.
It was really sweet.
So we definitely got a comment, I would believe, from your father on the show where we were talking about the exploration and our understanding of space. And was mostly just saying hey to us, and I commented back about thank you for stopping by and checking on that. That's on the Facebooks.
Okay.
He's
okay. His words were, he sent an email to your show asking about getting into gaming.
Oh.
And he said that somebody sent him an email back. And I just really want to know what the email is, because I want to give my take.
I'm just sitting here curious, wondering if Wayne like called him out, like, you noob, but you're a console gamer.
Well, I think I remember seeing a comment about people getting into gaming, but I'm trying to remember where that was, and it does feel like that was on a Facebook thing or something. And if it were, it may not have been me who responded, but someone else in the overall chats.
Oh, and maybe VtW Gaming. What if it's VtW Gaming you put? Then I could.
Well, I was going to say, it could be in one of the basic Facebook chats because I saw something come through that was a question about new people getting into gaming. And I don't know if I responded or someone else did, but I do remember seeing a post like that. I'll have to go dig around as to where that came through.
It's not a big deal. I just if one of you had it at hand, I was curious.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Because I'm a curious sort, me. But I guess
No, I haven't seen it at all. But
No,
if
no
he's
worries.
interested in getting into gaming, do you know if he has much experience like in general, or?
So we played a game called Snafu on the Intellivision. That was like
Wow.
think the Snake
Yes, I
game.
found it. All right.
Did you? Yes.
So this was on our. This came in a while ago, actually. But yes, says I'm old and never played video games. What would you guys suggest for me to play as a novice? So I'm pretty sure I responded to this as ShowX a couple weeks ago, where I said, or I believe it was me that said, there are tons of games to check out. It depends on what your speed is. Do you prefer strategy, where you have time to think out your moves before conquering the world? Then games like Civilization or maybe Europa Universalis would be up your alley. Do you like to run and gun, twitch around corners, and blast the baddies that is in front of you? Games like Doom Eternal or Call of Duty may scratch that itch. It really depends on you, but I guarantee there's a game out there for any of your tastes.
Yep.
So that was my response. I think I did as ShowX.
That would be my response too. I would take advantage of what's available free to play on mobile stores. So if you've never played a match 3 game, you could find a match 3 game that will, that's available for free and doesn't have any sort of purchase price to get in. So you can check that out and go, oh, I really like this type of game. There are a handful of like strategy RPG style of games that you can find, or strategy or RPG games that you can find that have gating. That you can do so many activities per day for free, and then you have to pay to do more. That give you a chance to like try out. It's like, oh, I really like the idea of progression and leveling up and stuff like that, and those dynamics. Or, that's not necessarily really what I like. I much prefer point and click style of story games, and I'm sure those exist, although they're not my jam, so I don't go looking for them. But I'm sure those exist on the mobile stores too. But if you've got a computer, obviously Steam is the place to be.
Yeah.
I would also probably add in that there's a learning curve associated with all the things that's been spoken about so far, which is being able to download and install games and, have an understanding of keyboards and such and mice and the interaction between the two, and often controlling a character, which is all very difficult. What I find with most of my family, who are, well, all of which are older than myself, generally the ranges of age for what I'm talking about varies between 40 and 65. Which is playing Facebook games, right? I mean, I personally don't enjoy them, but a lot of people do. And my dad's actually been getting really excited talking to me recently about the fact that he's got into the Clash of Clans or similar.
Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Something like that, right? But he was in a guild, and he was telling me all about this guild that he's in, and how he was trying to. He didn't know the words and the phrasing for it, but he was basically trying to tell me that the guild master used to role play, and he found it really strange because they'd always talk in this like, "Dear sir, please attend our formal meeting," blah 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 blah, right? And he, being himself, responding, pure Scots slang because he doesn't know how to, do anything. That's his jab, right? That's my dad.
It's like, what do you want, you fanny?
Yeah, they probably thought he was role playing as well, but he's just being himself.
That would be hilarious. No, that'd be hilarious. After time, like there's a meetup or something, people get together, and your father comes in, and he's like the most respected member of the clan because they're like, this guy never breaks character. Holy cow, it's amazing.
Yep.
And he shows up, and it's like, you are so in your character.
Yep, he wins the guild's RP award for like the 3rd year in a row.
So my dad never knew what a guild was, right? Like back when I was a teenager, I would talk my World of Warcraft guilds, and he'd be like, "What are you talking about? Like, what is that?" He wouldn't have any understanding. But it's his first time experiencing an online community, and it's kind of magical.
Interesting.
He gets so excited. He talks about these people like they're people that he knows, like there's his personal friends, and it's really sweet.
Wow.
But the guild master left 2 days ago over some debacle or whatever.
Oh, of course. Okay.
But my dad was given the promotion to GM. So my dad went from being somebody who plays the occasional, an occasional online game to suddenly being a guild master, and he's now in control of all these like 25 people. It's like, yeah, it's such a progression, and I think it's a good path. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice to see.
That's awesome.
That's pretty awesome.
Anyway, on that note, we are at time, and today I absolutely cannot stay over. I have another meet up with some friends 1 minute ago, so I have to finish myself. You guys are welcome to continue on if you want to, though.
No, we are happy to let things go so everybody can get back to their week and get ready to celebrate the new year. And then we will catch up with you all again after the new year to see that how everyone starts their 2021. But regardless of what you're doing, hopefully you're finding some way to celebrate and enjoy the time you have. If nothing else, like for me, with potentially more time in-house to spend focusing on the things around me, I hope to get some good gaming in. So if nothing else, hopefully you guys have some of that. But with that, it's time for us to sign off. I may be in Discord for like all of a minute. I have to set up going to deliver a 3D print that I had done for someone, as well as to try to convince myself whether or not I need an interim monitor before new monitors come out into the world. Because surely
look into selling your
I need
other
a
one
new
first,
monitor.
sir. At least look into it. Okay, with that,
Take us home.
Live on twitch.tv/VtWShowX. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Check out all of our links, all of them, on Linktree. I'll put the link in the chat. You can see it on the screen there. It's linktr.ee/showx. Click on that bad boy there, and you will find everything there for all the ShowX stuff. Our Reddit, our Instagram, our Patreon, our Facebook, our Twitters, all of our associate Twitters. Octail's his own personal Facebook page. You can check that out as well. And our Discord. Everything's in there. Please do go check out and support us that way. You can also hit donate underneath this screen right now. Minimum of I think $1 and above is anything's appreciated though. It helps us. We've got a rather lofty goal of about $800 to replace all of our microphones over the next couple of years. So every little donation helps in improving our show. We very much appreciate it. We need to get rid of this clunker here. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back next week as usual. Where My Pro's At will be on next Wednesday, not this coming Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that, I believe. And that's from then on. It'll be every Wednesday at 6 p.m. EST, 11 p.m. GMT. So do check out our other show as well. And you can find that one at www.linktr.ee/Where My Pro's At. Go check that out too. Thank you guys all for tuning in. We very much appreciate you all. We love you guys. Hope you had a good new year. Hope you've had a good-ish year, and I hope you have an even better one next year. I hope we all do, for God's sakes. Thank you, Todd and Wayne, for being here. I always enjoy chatting with you guys. It's the highlight of my week. Love you all.
All right. With that, we're out of here, everybody.
You too, sir. Merry Christmas to everybody, and we'll see you on the flip side of the new year.
Outstanding. With that, everybody, we're out of here, and a happy /salute. And goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. See you next zombie.